I don't know if this is working. I want to welcome you to the USW Local 286 Union Hall. It's kind of my second home. My name's Carlo Simone, Local 286. It is an honor and a privilege to today's event. You've been extremely patient. I want to thank you all for coming out to join us today. And with no further ado, I'd like to introduce the president of the Philadelphia Federation of Teachers, Harry Jordan.
Thank you. Thank you and good afternoon. And it is a good afternoon because we are here to celebrate something really exciting and to offer resources to our members so that they can continue to benefit from what really has been the culmination of years of advocacy by the AFT. We're joined by some very special guests today. We'll get it right. We're joined by some very special guests today. AFT President Steinberg, along with our inimitable Philadelphia Council AFL-CIO President Pat Eiding, and I are thrilled to welcome our guests and to welcome you to Philadelphia today. Second Gentleman Emhoff, Secretary Cardona, welcome to our beautiful city. And of course, Randy, welcome to your second home. You will hear from our guests today about what the impact of the student debt crisis is and what collectively we have done to help make major shifts in how it is addressed. I am thrilled that we are joined by two members who will tell their stories. You'll hear from Trina Dean and Heather shortly. Going into the laudable career of public education should not be a lifelong commitment to carrying debt. Educators work tirelessly every single day amidst roadblocks set by those who really have no actual knowledge about what it takes to be an effective educator. Despite this, our educators are profoundly dedicated to the students they serve. But predatory lending institutions have, for years, sought to make a buck. Well, actually, many bucks from our teachers. Recognizing this crisis, the AFT has led the charge in fighting for real change. Under Randi's leadership, this has been a priority at the AFT, and it's made a difference. You know what else has made a difference? A certain election. And in that election, not only did we remove a certain someone, but we elected Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, leaders who have promised to be guided by their commitment to working people. And it does not hurt that the president is married to a teacher. We are joined today by Secretary Miguel Cardona and Second Gentleman Emhoff, who are part of that incredible work each day. You will hear more distinguished guests and our phenomenal members. But for now, I want everyone to remember this. Elections matter. Exactly. Advocacy matters. It's great to be here with you all today. And now it is my pleasure to introduce Trina Dean, who is an academic coach and the secretary for the Philadelphia Federation of Teachers, as well as a member of the AFT PA Executive Council.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. Second Gentleman Emhoff.
Good afternoon.
Secretary Cardona. AFT President Randi Weingarten. President Steinberg. President Jordan. President Iden. I am so honored to be here today to be able to stand before you free of student debt. I have been in public service the majority of my adult life. I attended Drexel University where I received my BS in finance. I immediately went to work for the Department of Veterans Affairs. Deciding that I wanted to pursue my passion for teaching, I went back to Drexel and received my MS in elementary education and began working for the School District of Philadelphia in 2009. I graduated with approximately $73,000 in loans for my total education. As soon as I found out about public service loan forgiveness, I did everything that I was instructed to do. I consolidated my loans from AES to direct loans. I signed up for an income-based repayment plan and paid my bill monthly, never missed a payment. I filled out my certification and fast forward 10 years, my application was denied. And they said that all of my payments didn't qualify, which is odd because I did everything they asked me to do. Then COVID hit, but thankfully when the Biden administration put a pause on student loan payments, that time counted towards my public service loan forgiveness. Weingarten versus DeVos, she who shall not be named, meant that they had to go back and not only reconsider my application, but look at those payments that they said initially didn't count. So during the pause, I got on the phone with AES, had them send me my entire payment history. I had my job recertify my employment and created a spreadsheet, because that's what teachers do, showing the discrepancy. I called Fed Loans and was on hold for 3 hours, probably 3 hours at a time, 3 times a week, but I was persistent. And you will need to be persistent. Where I used to be frustrated, where I hit a brick wall, where I couldn't see my way out, I can now say the system works. I told you before, after I graduated with close to $73,000 of debt, what I did was making 10 years of payments on an income-based repayment plan based on my teacher's salary. The amount that was ultimately forgiven was close to $94,000. That amount of money is life-changing. It means that I can breathe a little easier, and it means financial freedom. When I began working in public service, I knew that I would never be rich. You don't go into education with that expectation. What I did expect was to be drowning so far in student debt that I couldn't see my way out. So thank you, AFT President Randi Weingarten, for listening when no one did, and for taking action when no one else thought that they should. Thank you to the Biden administration for drowning out the naysayers who believe that this is a handout, for making good on a promise that was made so long ago. Thank you. Thank you to my local residents for bringing awareness here in Pennsylvania and Philadelphia and being vocal and helping our membership get the information that we need. To all the nurses, to the teachers, to the educators, and other public service listening, the program works. It can be accomplished and your loans can be forgiven. Be persistent, don't quit. I have close to 93,996 reasons why you should. Thank you.
Hi, and greetings to everyone. I came not as prepared because I'm the sort of college professor that wings it, but also grateful to be here. I got my degree. Oh, my name. Yeah. My name is Heather Levi, and I teach at Temple University. And Temple is a wonderful institution. but most of us who teach there are not wealthy, at least not from our salaries. I got my degree in the early aughts and almost miraculously had a teaching position right after I graduated, but then after 3 years that kind of ended, and I spent some time underemployed and unemployed. So during that time I had to go into forbearance. That happens. Then I got the job at Temple, and that was right around the time I heard about income-based repayment and PSLF, and I was very excited because with what I was making at the time, what I was paying in student loans, I felt like I was a little bit too old to be living on rice and beans all the time, which is not to say anything is wrong with rice and beans. But with income-based, that really made a big difference. And looking forward to PSLF, that also did. I called my loan servicer and I asked what I needed to do to make sure that I was eligible. And what I was told was, there's nothing that you can do at this time, but when you're about a year and a half away from your 120th payment, then you should send in your paperwork. So I did that. And it was devastating, really devastating to be rejected because nobody had told me I had to reconsolidate. I also felt a great deal of shame, like I should have known, I should have followed up, but I hadn't. And so after I dug myself out of the depression, I thought, I guess I'm just going to keep paying income-based and wait until the next election, because if it goes the other way, the debt might be the least of my problems. So fortunately, thanks to the current administration and the hard work of Randi Weingarten and everybody at the AFT, thanks also to Senator Warren, and I'm sure many other people whose names I don't know, I was able to pay off a debt that, again, was about $60,000 when I borrowed it, and was over $115,000 when it was paid off. So again, thank you. I also want to say that it was an easy process, relatively speaking. And I signed up with Summer, and they handled basically everything, even my panicked emails and phone calls saying, are you sure that this is happening? Are you sure they got paperwork? I got this kind of weird message, what does it mean? So I really want to encourage anybody who is eligible or thinks they might be eligible and just is depressed or afraid of going through another kind of thing that feels like a scam, that this is life-changing. It means I can do things like consider retirement someday. Not yet, though.
Thank you, Heather. Good afternoon. I am Arthur Steinberg, president of AFT Pennsylvania, the state federation which represents 36,000 educators, paraprofessionals, public and private sector employees, 64 locals across the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania and the state of Delaware. I am encouraged to see so many of you here on a Thursday evening while we were still at the beginning of the school year, and I'm sure you had full, tiring days in school and family obligations to get to on top of that. But with student loan debt a major topic in today's news, and the deadline for temporary expanded service loan forgiveness coming up October 31st, it is important to make sure that you have the information you need to get the student debt relief you need and qualify for. So AFT, our national union, is hosting a series of student debt clinics across the country in partnership with state feds and local unions. I'm excited and proud that this particular clinic is featuring some very important guests. I want to thank PFT President Jerry Jordan for partnering with us on this event, and AFT President Randi Weingarten for being here in person. And I really want to thank Carlos Simone and the USW Local 286 for hosting us in their space. welcome Philadelphia AFL-CIO President Pat Whiting, who is supportive of all of our issues and working people all the time. But I especially want to welcome U.S. Secretary of Education Miguel Cardona, who has been a champion for educators across the nation and who's been to Pennsylvania quite a few times in the first 2 years of the Biden administration. Thank you. I want to welcome our special guest, the Second Gentleman of the United States, Douglas Emhoff. As the spouse to the first woman vice president, he's been working hard to spread the word to the American people about all of the great achievements the Biden-Harris administration has a number of states with tremendous amount of student loan debt. 64% of Pennsylvania college graduates had student loan debt in the 1920 school year. Think about that, 64%. That's why AFT is paying particular attention to locals in Pennsylvania. Just this week, there was a virtual clinic for Southwestern Pennsylvania members, and later this month, there will be additional clinics at Plymouth Meeting and Scranton. You've heard incredible stories from 2 AFT Pennsylvania members who have successfully navigated the public service loan forgiveness program and have had incredible amounts of student debt rightfully forgiven. I'm proud to have heard the stories of Heather Levi from the Temple Association of University Professionals talk, and Trina Dean, the Vice President at large, no, I'm sorry, she's actually the Associate Secretary for AFT Pennsylvania, same as she is for the Philadelphia Federation of Teachers. I am glad to welcome Chris Goff, Assistant Director of AFT's Higher Education Department.
Wave.
Chris will be presenting this evening's clinic. We will be covering how to qualify and apply for the expanded public service loan forgiveness program before that important October 31st deadline. He'll cover what President Biden's recent announcement on student loan forgiveness means for you and your loans. And they'll help you navigate your student loans and apply for public service loan forgiveness. Now it's my pleasure to introduce someone who's been on the front lines of fighting for student loan forgiveness, as well as everything else she fights for as long as I can remember. She was instrumental in the Biden administration's push to forgive student loans and is working to make sure all those who qualify get the relief they deserve. Randi has been a great friend to AFT Pennsylvania and PFT for many, many years. And as Jerry said, she spends an awful lot of time here. Randi, is there any truth to the rumor that you're going to start paying Pennsylvania income tax? She has my sincere thanks for directing so many of AFT's resources to Pennsylvania. Let's extend a warm welcome to my friend, our National President, Randi Weingarten.
So, you don't normally hear you normally hear from Chris Goff. This is what you need to do. This is how you file with Summer. This is what you need to do before October 31st. But what you're hearing from Jerry and Arthur and myself is because October 31st is a thing. And what has happened between last October and now, I want you to just look at these 2 gentlemen. They have made a miracle happen. And I say it that way because I remember being with Senator Harris talking about student debt, and her constantly, her husband knows this better than I do. She will ask you a question, she'll zero in on it, she says, how do we change it? Give me four ways of changing it, and get it to me by tonight.
True.
And I will introduce him in a minute. Secretary Cardona has walked in our shoes. He's a parent of kids in Meriden, Connecticut, one of our locals. He was a teacher in Meriden. He's a principal in Meriden. He was the superintendent of schools in Connecticut. He understands at his core what it means when a family of teachers are looking at their student debt issues and wondering, can we buy a house? Can we buy a car? What's going to happen this month? And one of the reasons that we are so fixated on this is that we walk the walk with teachers, with paras, and with nurses. And we knew in 2007 and 2008, we thought, oh, this is nice. You know, when President Bush, Hillary Clinton, Ted Kennedy, they all came together and they passed public service loan forgiveness, and it was like, okay, here's an incentive if you're in the armed forces, if you're a teacher, that if you pay your debt for 10 years, all of a sudden, the rest of it will be forgiven. And so in 2016, we started doing student debt clinics to prepare, because 2007 and 10 years equals 2017. Now, I am a social studies teacher, not a math teacher. But, you know, so we started preparing in 2016. And by the way, we have had, I think I got this number right, Chris, 700 student debt clinics like this one since 2016. Some of them are virtual. Every Thursday night we do a virtual one all across the country. And we've had, Mr. Secretary, 107 since your amazing announcement in October. Now, why do I say this is a miracle? All of a sudden, what we started seeing was just like what Trina said. The story that Trina said, that is not unique to Trina. Thousands of people have gone through this. The frustration, the calling, the being 1 cent wrong on a student debt payment, and all of a sudden you're in forbearance. 1 cent. We went to Navient. We sued Navient. We went to Betsy DeVos. We sued Betsy DeVos. We said this can't possibly be true, that 99% of the people who apply for student debt forgiveness after 10 years don't get it. And all of those stories. And in 2018, when we kept hearing these stories, we did a poll of our members. And it is the first time we ever broke confidentiality in a poll. And why? Because just like Trina said, just like Heather said, people felt shame. They're doing everything they're supposed to do. They want to be school teachers. They want to be nurses. They want to be in the public service. And every time they try to get debt canceled, the federal government said no. People were suicidal. People were in shame. Our members! And we said, we have to do more than just hold debt clinics. We have to do everything in our power to make this promise real, to make it right, to give people the benefit that they were promised. And that's why we sued Betsy DeVos. And that's why we do these clinics. And that's why we went to you and said, look there, we can't get through this maze. And Secretary Cardona and President Biden and Vice President Harris and their staffs, they figured out in this waiver how to get through this maze, how to make sure that if people apply or apply again and they have paid their debt for 10 years, they will get the rest forgiven. So Trina is no longer an exception when she says she's gotten her debt repaid or forgiven. I was in a school in New York on Monday. 2 teachers came up to me. They got their debt forgiven. I was in a school in Medina, Ohio yesterday. A teacher came up to me. They got their debt forgiven. 175,000 people who have gone through this process, who have gotten the promise of PSLF restored. That is what this administration is doing. President Bush made a promise. President Biden is making sure that that promise is delivered. That's what this administration is doing. We need teachers. There's lots of things we need to do. But a promise that says, if you've done everything you're supposed to do, you should get that promise redeemed for doing the amazing work you're doing. That's what this administration is doing. And the last thing I'll say before I introduce the secretary is, it's not magic. It's a miracle, but it's not magic. And that's why we're doing these clinics, and that's why Chris is going to come up after we all speak, and that's why we want you to file the paperwork. We want you to do it before October 31st. We think that the settlement we reached in the DeVos suit, I like saying that name, the suit we won against Betsy DeVos, we think that that means that a lot of the benefits of the waiver will continue. But we want you to apply before October 31st. And if you are a member, we have help. It's not just this clinic. We have this navigator, this app called Summer, which you'll learn about, which will help you navigate through the maze that's a lot easier to navigate through, but there's still a lot of paperwork. So we want this promise to be real. And you do so much. You deserve this promise to be real, that you've worked hard, people have paid their student debt, the rest of it should be forgiven after 10 years. But, you know, it takes people, everybody has said elections matter, and you're going to hear from the second gentleman in a minute as well. But let me just say, having a teacher as the education secretary, someone who can close his eyes and understand what it means to teach, what the struggles are, what the successes are, what the support is that we need to help kids thrive. There's a reason why 99% of the schools were reopened in person under President Biden, because we had the support to do that. That's Secretary Cardona. There's a reason that they are on a bus trip all across America to show what can be done in public schools. That's Secretary Cardona, someone who understands education and understands how to make the promise and potential of public education real for every single young person in America today. And it's my honor to introduce our Secretary of Education, Secretary Miguel Cardona.
I'm pumped up. How's everyone? Good. Look, we're going to be brief. You got some important paperwork to fill out, and you got some loan relief coming. That's my hope. Thank you, Randy, for all you do. You are an incredible champion for educators. I mean, you can feel the passion right now. Carlo, thank you. Where's Carlo? Thank you, Carlo, for what you do and for the space today. Jerry and Arthur, thank you. I want to thank, in particular, Trina and Heather for sharing your PSLF stories. You know, we've been talking about this for months, how it's going to get done, but man, when you can put a face to it, it really hits home. So I'm happy for you both. You're why we're here today. You represent what public service is. It's a calling for all of us. And this is why our teachers deserve respect. And it's not just talking top lines of respect our teachers. It's about following up on policies that provide public service loan forgiveness the way it was intended to be. I'm thrilled to be here with the second gentleman, Doug Emhoff. He's an educator too. He helps his law students become great lawyers. Really happy to be here with him. We spent some time today, and I love the passion he has for supporting our educators. I'm speaking to you, as Randy said, as a teacher myself. I'm a fourth grade teacher, and once you're a teacher, you're always a teacher. I never wanted to leave the classroom, believe it or not. I don't know, something pulled me out, but let me tell you, fourth grade teacher, that's who I am. My wife is an AFT member, and I recognize, and I have so many family members who are educators, and so when I act in DC, I know that the decisions that I make are affecting family members as well, and educators across the country. I know how rewarding it is to feel like you've made a difference in a student's life, but I also know how hard it can be to do the job we love. So my message today is, I've got your back and we've got your back. We have a president and vice president who believe that America is stronger when we build our economy around working people and working families. We made a commitment to improve access and affordability in higher education. And that means working hard to fix a broken system. You know, we did that by improving borrower defense, making sure we go after those bad actors out there like Corinthian ITT, shutting them down, and making sure we forgive the loans of those who are taken advantage of. Many times, first-generation college students and students, black and brown students, who are trying to chase the American dream, they're taken advantage of. We shut that down. We took care of our folks who had total and permanent disability. We discharged their loans, because if you're totally disabled, having a loan over your head is not going to help. And you're eligible for that relief. What we did is we prevented any of them to have to fill out paperwork to do that. We did it automatically. We're improving income-driven repayment, which means, you know, when I heard your story, $70,000. You know how much talent we're losing in this country because people are not going to college because they're afraid of the cost? The students you serve, many of them who are below the poverty threshold, they're not even thinking about college. They make a decision before middle school. That's not for me. I can't afford that. I can't do that to my parents. Imagine the talent we're losing in this country. We're fixing that. The income-driven repayment is going to cut monthly student loan payments in half when we're done. It's going to make it manageable, and it's going to cut it after 20 years. You pay 20 years, you're done. You know, getting an education shouldn't be a life sentence of debt. And we're doing something about it. I mean, the loan announcement, the loan debt relief announcement that the president made, he campaigned on $10,000, he went to $20,000 for those who are eligible for Pell. Look, this administration is about substance, not sensationalism. We're getting the job done. And then public service loan forgiveness, what we're here to talk about today. 98% of the people denied. That's intentional neglect, not even benign neglect. That's intentional neglect. That's misleading to borrowers, to public servants who, you don't go into it for the huge amount of money. You go into it to make your community better, and you were failed. You were failed. So we're fixing that, and now over 200, that number went from 175 to 211,000 people have benefited from public service loan forgiveness since this announcement. Thanks in large part to the AFT, Randy, what you're doing across the country, and thank you to the local leaders and state leaders here. Look, we can't do it alone. You're helping. To date, $13 billion in public service loan forgiveness was forgiven in the last year since we made those changes. $13 billion in 1 year, 98% denial rate before that. Okay? All total, we're over $36 billion in loan relief before the president's announcement. Okay, we still have work to do. We're making college more accessible and more affordable. I want to tell you real quick, I was a vice president for my local union in Meriden when I was there, when I was an administrator. And one of my jobs was to communicate benefits. I can't think of a better example of that than what the AFT is doing here with PSLF, so thank you. I remember in Meriden, when I was an administrator there, we applied for the innovation grant that AFT was doing, right? Yeah. So we knew how important it was to collaborate and innovate together. Then when the pandemic hit, I was a commissioner of education for Connecticut. And we reopened schools in Connecticut safely, because a lot of people leave that word out. We reopened schools safely in Connecticut faster than the states. We got computers in the hands of kids because we worked closely with the AFT. Jan Hockdale and I were on speed dial. She was a state president. I think I saw her more than my own kids for a period there. We got it done together, and now I'm asking AFT, continue to do what you're doing. Let's get this done together. Let's get these benefits out there together. We have to continue to work together. The work is not going to get easier, it's going to get different, but if we continue to work together, keep our teachers, elevating our teachers, giving them the benefits that they deserve, this profession, we're going to continue to lift it. It's my honor to serve as Secretary of Education for all of you. I'm humbled and so appreciative of what you do day in and day out for the students. You do it for the students. So thank you for what you're doing. And speaking of champions for students and champion for educators, now I take great pride in being able to introduce the next speaker, somebody that over the last year and a half I got to know. kind of on a personal level, look, this person cares. Mr. Emhoff is there. We were at a stop a little while ago, and he was talking about the importance of making sure we're respecting the profession and making sure we're working in community for our schools and for our educators. I'm honored to work alongside him. Ladies and gentlemen, Second Gentleman, Mr. Emhoff.
Okay. Let's hear it for our Secretary of Education. We have spent quite a bit of time together over the past couple of years, professionally and personally. And I got to meet his kids, I got to meet his wife. I think my wife swore you in, actually.
She did, yeah.
And it's such an amazing thing to watch that happen, to see the accomplishment and to see the pride in his kids and his family. It is really one of the great things I get to do behind the scenes. Another great thing is we get to host folks in our home in DC, and the great Randi Weingarten was just at our house about a week ago with other labor leaders from everywhere, all types of industries. So Carla, thank you so much. The steelworkers for hosting us, AFL-CIO. You're all in this together. You are all in this together, and this administration, I hope, has shown this to you. The president always says, the vice president says, this is the most labor-friendly administration in history, and they're not just saying it. With action, and that's what we're doing. And the personal stories, thank you so much for sharing those, because that's what it's all about. Again, as Second Gentleman, I get to travel around the entire country. I think I've been to 40 states, and I just listen. I get to meet folks, and I get to hear what's going on, and I get to live with the president. And as Randy says, she asks a question. She still has that, the question asking brain. And I will say, what'd you do today, Dougie? We're worried. What did they say? Oh, wait, you need to talk to this person. So it's more than 4, Randy. I get like 12. But it turns into action. So when we have we did a listening session in Allentown, talking not only to teachers, but principals, superintendent, partners in the community. And why are we doing it? We're not just doing it to get in front of the cameras. We're doing it to listen, and since I'm still a lawyer at heart, he's still a teacher at heart, we took pages and pages of notes. Our staffs were there to follow up, and we're literally going to bring that right back to DC and turn that into action. And so we've done it on COVID, we've done it on food, we've done it on broadband, we've done it on lead pipes, we've done it on all the things that people need help on in their communities on an everyday basis. And that's what we are. I say we are serious people in the serious business of government, and that's what we're doing. And you're seeing it with the president, you're seeing it with the vice president, and you're seeing it with all of us in the administration, hustling and traveling all around the country to talk about what we're doing, but also to listen to what else we need to be doing. So now I'll get to my remarks. I know we are here talking about public service loan forgiveness. So I have learned so much about this topic in preparing for this. So I mean, what they all said. I cannot agree more with the program, being in public service. So I am a part-time teacher myself at Georgetown, but my little brother, he's been a fireman for 20 years, but his first 10 was as middle school science and math teacher in Santa Cruz. So I know full well from his experience as a 30-year public servant who went to college, had student debt, what this all means on a day-to-day basis. So I just want to make sure that you know that we know, and we continue to know what you're all going through, and that informs all the things that we're doing. I want to just say, in addition to everything else we talked about, that this administration supports teachers. I just to say that and have that to be a thing, that this administration simply put supports teachers, and we have your back. again, traveling around the country during the depths of COVID and visiting folks and being on the front lines, and I met a lot of teachers, and you were frontline workers, especially during COVID, having to completely shift the model of what you're doing to go to a virtual environment and to see the mental stress on those kids. And we have a mental health epidemic. Let's be clear about this. We have a mental health epidemic, and a lot of it is with our young people. And teachers, look, you went through this too. You went through this too, so you need our support. You need our help. This administration has your back. Okay? We're not going to stop there. We know, as Randy knows and the Secretary knows, we need more teachers. We need to make it easier to enter this profession. We need more of you. So this program is going to be a great recruiting technique to know that if you get into this and put your 10 years in, there's going to be a debt cancellation. But we need to do more than that. We need to know, people need to know the honor, the dignity of this profession, that we're going to support you. We're going to make sure that you have the technology that you need. We've got the infrastructure law that's going to provide broadband all across the country. We need to make these classrooms environmentally safer. We need to take all the lead pipes out in all the buildings in this country. That's something that we've been working on. Our school buses, they need to be clean. We cannot have our students sitting in a pool of CO2 on the way to school. We need to have clean transportation. In fact, we need to have transportation. One of the issues that we heard in Allentown earlier today from the mayor was they do not have buses there. They've got kids who literally cannot get to school because of what's going on here. So it's a full set of issues that we need to deal with, and this administration is going to deal with it. So this is not just me, as you heard. Our First Lady, my good friend, Dr. Jill Biden, is an educator. She's a member, and she's also a real mentor to me. Not only as coming into my role as Second Gentleman, being the first man and the first of a lot of things, but also being a teacher too. So we'll be on trips together, and she'll be asking me, have you graded your papers? Are you giving your students feedback? Because it's not just a one-way street. So I've learned so much from my good friend, Dr. Biden, and she was such an amazing second lady. She's such an amazing first lady. I'm going to do everything I can to continue in her legacy. You mentioned my wife, the vice president. That's kind of cool to say. The only person in history who's able to say that. She has been a fierce advocate for educators and education throughout her entire career. You mentioned Corinthian. Well, that was Senator Harris. That was when she was Attorney General. And she went after predatory lenders. She went after the big banks. And Corinthian is no longer, in part because of Kamala Harris. And this is something that is not something she just came to. This is the work that she's been doing throughout her career, and she will continue to do that work as vice president. Just last month, she spoke at your meeting, 6,000 delegates, and she said an educator's work doesn't stop at the end of the day when you walk out of your school. Your work is full time. And I was there. She was also talking about some of these so-called leaders around the country who are literally enacting laws to make your job more difficult, to make it more, you have to look over your shoulder about what you're talking to your students about, and that's not right. We need to change course on that. We cannot prevent our students from reading. We cannot prevent our students from You take care of our children, you take care of our future, and the Biden-Harris administration is focused on taking care of you. We talked about the debt relief. You're going to learn more about it, and of course you heard the big news from the Biden-Harris administration. Promises made, promises kept with the $20,000 and the $10,000. it's already helping. The Secretary and I and Randy and I were talking about it. You can already feel it. You can already feel the difference that that's making, and it's going to continue to make. The President and the Vice President are going to be tireless on this issue, and they're not going to stop. They are not going to stop. You, the educators, the public servants, the community organizers, you're the reason that they fought so hard, and you're the reason why they're going to continue to fight so hard for this. So, on behalf of President Joe Biden, Vice President Kamala Harris, First Lady Jill Biden, the entire Biden-Harris administration, we're just getting started. We've had an amazing 18, 19 months. We're going to continue to do this work for the American people, for you, the teachers, for your students, for your families, for their families, and most importantly, for all of our futures. All of our futures are at stake, and we need to keep working, and we need to keep doing this together. That's why I love to see all these groups together, these coalitions, because it's the coalitions that are going to help us win this fight. Thank you so much.
So we're going to move off the stage, and we're going to have Mr. Chris Goff, who knows more than anyone else probably in the universe about public service loan forgiveness, go through the normal